So, Airplay in Node. I guess most of you know what Airplay is. But you probably don't know me. Watson wasn't available on Twitter, even though I was out pretty early. But on GitHub, I was really lucky. I signed up the day after they launched. So that's a bad part about having such a generic name. But that's OK. So, even though most of you probably know what Airplay is, I'm just going to give a brief history lesson. But basically, Airplay allows you to share all kinds of stuff from your iDevices, iPhones, iPads, etc. It could, for example, be like photos. Here, like, is a great guide about you going to your Photos app. You launch your Photos app, and you can see this. And you select the photo you want to share, and you click the little share button in the lower left corner, and you click the Airplay button, and then you choose like your Apple TV, and then you can see on your Apple TV, you can see the picture. Or it could be other stuff as well than just pictures. So the first generation of Airplay was actually not called Airplay, if you guys remember. It was in 2004. Apple released something called Airport Express. They had done wireless stuff before, but the Airport Express was like this neat little wireless access point that had an audio jack in it. And so was born AirTunes. And you can see where it comes from. It was, of course, iTunes. And you wanted to be able to stream your music from iTunes to like different speakers in different rooms. And behind the scenes, iTunes is just called RAUP, Remote Audio Output Protocol, or Real-Time Audio Output Protocol, I think. And then came the second generation. In 2010, they were like, oh, this whole video thing and stuff is going to be a huge thing. So they introduced Airplay, which is basically just, to make it confusing, it's iTunes 2, which is basically still just RAUP. They made a few changes to make it better in some cases. And then Airplay, which is going to be a little confusing because Airplay is also the name of the protocol, but it's also the name of the marketing name that they use for like talking about both the AirTunes, the RAUP thing, and the Airplay thing. So just to add to confusion. So how does this work? And the idea is, of course, you don't want to set up a lot of stuff to make this work. So they have a service discovery mechanism built into the protocols, which is basically something called Bonjour that you probably heard about. But Bonjour is basically just Apple's implementation of a standard called zeroconf, which in turn basically just runs over multicast DNS. So multicast DNS, we can do that in Node. That's pretty easy. And RAUP is basically just audio. And Airplay, well, that's everything else. Because when they figured out that audio wasn't enough, they're like, OK, we're going to put a lot of stuff into this new thing. And it was basically just a list of all the stuff they could think of. So you can do stuff with photos. You can share your photos. You can stream video. You can share video. You can even do screen mirroring, where it's like a real-time encoding to H something something of the content on your screen, and you stream it over HTTP. So Airplay is all HTTP. So it's easily extendable. Every time they figure out something new, they just add a new endpoint to the standard and to the standard. And then that should be it. So beneath all this stuff is a shitload of protocols. And this is basically just the tip of the iceberg. I left out like everything that's to do with codecs and stuff like that. This is just basically the transport protocols, the timing protocols, the control protocols, because you can do stuff like changing the volume on only a certain speaker, or you can do stuff like skipping in video and all that stuff. So there's a lot of protocols involved in that. And all of these protocols I've listed here are all backed by RFCs, and some of them are actually pretty old from the 90s. And what Apple have done is they've taken these and they've, which we'll see, kind of kept to the standard, but also cheated a few places, which is just going to make it a little bit more interesting. So before I get ahead of myself here, I probably should tell you a little bit about what it is that I've been doing. So a lot of people have been, actually, if we go to this one here, this is 2011. You probably can't see this. It's not that important. I expect you to memorize this. So in 2011, there was a guy, James, who posted this on a message board. He basically figured out how to extract the private RSA key, because Apple, they were kind of like, oh, we don't want people messing with our proprietary protocol that we built on top of open protocols. So they, of course, encrypted everything. But he managed to lift the private key from an Apple TV. And so began the fun and games, because a lot of people then said, okay, why is it only iTunes that's supposed to connect to my speaker or my TV? Why not, like, why can't I make my own client? So people started making a lot of clients. You probably, if you wanted to have more control on your Mac, you probably maybe installed Airfoil or something like that. But there's a lot of clients. And even in Node.js, people have developed clients to be able to stream audio. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to reverse the whole thing and say, what, instead of in Node you could build a client that could talk to your speaker, what if you could become a server? What if you could become an Apple TV? What if in Node you could advertise yourself on the network and become an Apple TV or a speaker? What could you then do? Because then you could suddenly start to do a lot of really interesting stuff, I thought, instead of just using your gear that you already had in your house. And in 2010, a lot of stuff was done documenting, reverse engineering this protocol. There was another guy in 2011. So I'm not claiming ownership of any of this. A lot of people have gone before me and spent a lot of time decoding these protocols, figuring out what Apple is actually sending behind the scenes. And there is a lot of binary stuff in here as well somewhere. That's all fine. So let's see what I have next here. Oh yeah, so to get into a little bit more technical details, Raub is actually the beast here. Raub is the complicated thing to get working, because Raub, which is like the stuff for sending audio back and forth, mostly forth, is actually built on top of a lot of different services that run on different ports on your system. So you actually expose 4 different ports. These are the default ports. You can technically run it on other ports, but sometimes your iPhone or whatever will like, that doesn't seem like a real Apple TV. It's not a real port. I'm just going to ignore it. So it's probably a good idea to stick with the standard ports if you can. And RTSP, a real-time streaming protocol, is a really interesting protocol. I mean, doing this reverse engineering and looking at all this stuff, it's been really interesting actually reading all the RFCs. Like, RFCs have always been a little bit of a mystery to me, except I knew like why they were there and stuff, but they've always been like, reading them, it's been like, oh, it's been like being back in school, right? And reading all like, it's like if you're not a lawyer and you read like legal stuff, it's like there's all sorts of lingo that they use that you have to figure out like how to interpret. But the real-time streaming protocol is actually really interesting because it's also used in a lot of media centers to basically control playback, streaming of data, like control of what data do you expose to which clients and stuff like that. But it also sends raw, so that's port 5000. It also on 6000 sends audio data, like the raw binary, the music. And then it uses RTP control, or RTCP is also sometimes called, which is basically a subset of the RTP protocol to do stuff like negotiating, resending of lost packages and stuff, because that happens out of band. And then in the newer versions of Route, there is also a timing protocol, which also is part of the RTP stuff. But, oops, that was the wrong way. Because of course Apple couldn't help changing a little bit of this. So the audio stuff and to a certain extent the RTSP stuff, Apple, they follow the standard. That's good. But the control and timing stuff, they don't really follow the standard. So you have to do a little bit of hacking to figure out what's going on. Airplay, way easier. Airplay is just, again, there's Airplay marketing term, and then there's Airplay protocol, runs on port 7000 by default. And then there is an NTP protocol on 7011, but that's only used when you do screen mirroring. So if you don't do screen mirroring, you don't have to worry about that thing. And what I found is that you can expose yourself, your server, as an Apple TV or something like that on the network. And you don't have to provide all these services. You don't have to listen on all these ports, as long as what you're trying to do doesn't require that service. So if you don't do screen mirroring, your iPhone won't try to connect to the NTP service. So you can get away with like creating just a minimalistic shell of an Apple TV. So this has been my setup. It's actually pretty hard to be like a man in the middle between an Apple TV and your iPhone. And I tried to, I'm using Wireshark here in the picture, and I tried to like set it up in promiscuous mode so I could like listen on the network and figure out what package was going back and forth between the iPhone and the Apple TV. I might have done it wrong. Maybe somebody here in the audience can do it better, but I couldn't get it to work. So I ended up buying this nice piece of hardware, which is basically just a switch with some added capabilities. To the right in the picture. It allows me to set up the switch so all traffic that goes to the Apple TV and from the Apple TV, it forwards on port number 1 on the switch and feeds it right into my laptop, and then I can use Wireshark to just silently sit there and just listen to all the traffic that's going back and forth. So that has really been quite helpful. It's my first time doing Amazon one-day shipping. Works amazing. So, the fruits of the labor. I love NPM. And the Node community in general is really good at making a lot of small packages that only does one thing but does it really well. I'm not claiming all my packages do things really well, but they tend to do one thing. And this is just some of the packages that came out of this endeavor. So what I've tried to do is, when I reverse engineered the thing in JavaScript, I try to make it as modular as possible so people who want to use this don't have to just click like one big, I want to be an Apple TV, boom, and then it boots up like all these 6 different ports and broadcast everything. So you can do a lot of stuff yourself if you want, for example, only the RTSP stuff, or if you only want to do the audio stuff, or only want to do the photo stuff. There are different modules that kind of do this and helps you use these building blocks to set up like just the server you want to use. So I thought, let's just look at this. So my problem have always been, how do I get like pictures I take on my phone to my computer? Well, if I just, can you see this? What if I can just like use something like Netcat or something and just cat it to, so let's say like just redirect the output to like a file. How am I doing on time, by the way? Does anybody know? Okay. Apparently I have all the time in the world. So what if this is the demo gods are gonna be with me here. What if I just set up, like whenever on AirCat, I just set up like a hotspot, kind of like an Airplay server, kind of like saying, hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And then I can go into my phone, and then I can just, in my Photos app, actually, let's do this instead. Let's say, I always want to do this. This is like a perfect opportunity. So, hey, like this. So, makes you believe it's real then. So if I go into my Photos app and find this picture and click the share button as you saw before and click Airplay, and now there is like an Apple TV called AirCat suddenly appearing, and I click that. And as you can see, that screen isn't working. As you can see, the program ended. Figured out, oh, I got a picture, thank you. So if I open this, way. You look beautiful. So that's like a nice little tool. Like, this is my problem all the time, like how to get pictures from my phone to my laptop, now I know. So, what else can you do? What else can you do? So, what if let's just look at this file first. Actually, look. Of course, like I was like messing with this just before the where did I put it? I was messing with this just before, and of course fucked it up. So I just want to show you anyway. This is what it's supposed to look like. So this one is, the phone is sending JPEG, and there's this awesome thing called PictureTube. I don't know if you know it, but it's a really awesome module by Substack. And on line 5 here, I require one of my modules called Airplay Photos, and say, tell the internet that you are called Magic, and every time there's a photo, do stuff to the photo, like convert it to PNG using graphics magic, because picture magic only knows PNG, and then run this. And then I'm going to run another one because for some reason this one doesn't work. So I'm going to run this example one instead. So let's just do like this, because this is going to be really interesting in this resolution. Okay, so if we take the same picture as before, hey! So I dare you to come up with probably more useful examples than that, but it's awesome. Last but not least, I built this thing to kind of like show off some really cool stuff that can be done. And it's on NPM, even though it's kind of like an example, but like you can put stuff on NPM, right? So I think I called it photo drop. Oh, yeah, start photo drop, and it starts up a website, runs a local server. So, and I have a Wi-Fi thing running here. I mean, if you connect to, it's called Thomas iPhone, and the password is nodeconf, all lowercase. This is probably gonna like fuck up a lot when a lot of people connect to it. But if you have time, if I have time, I don't know. Do I have time? Okay. So I don't know. I have 5 connections already. Let's see if this works. And then you go into your Photos app and you share a photo. Please don't share anything else for that matter. And then hopefully, if the demo guards are working, oh, by the way, you should see like something called photo drop in when you share via Airplay, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not working. Is anybody trying? I have 5 connections on this one. Somebody is trying. Maybe it's, okay. So, anyways, so the idea is, of course, that this website is supposed to update with like all the pictures that people are like real time streaming in. So they get like a log of all the pictures. And then it crashed, I think. Okay. Anyway, you get the picture. No pun intended. So you can have a website where you can just like stream pictures to. All sorts of other stuff. Thank you.